right. Good Sunday afternoon. I hope everyone is well. Excuse me. StreamYard has some new features, so I'm going to add some music. Let's see if y'all hear music. I don't know how that works, but we'll have some musical interlude as I give y'all a chance to get on and all of those things. I don't know if y'all hear it. I'm not sure how that works, but we'll see. Good morning. My glasses today. Bridget, what's the smile? What's the sad faces for? What did I do? What's going on? Hi, Rosalind. Happy Sunday to you. Bridget, are you choosing violence early in the morning? What is happening? Happy Sunday, good people. All right, I see some eyes on the screen. I'll give folks a chance to get in the chat. Good afternoon, Elle. Linda. Celia Care. Happy Sunday. Glad to see y'all. Thank y'all for joining. All right. I just realized I forgot to change my title for this conversation, but we're going to get started in a minute. Happy Sunday. I am mostly prepared. No, that's not the right one. Let me fix that. All right. Today's discussion, we are having a Labor Day weekend discussion around Black women, labor, and liberation. I have started this conversation over in our Patreon group. We're talking about Labor Day and Black labor. And so I figured we take the conversation over here and expand on it a little bit more. Hey there, Geraldine. Oh, hey Bridget. No, that was my pick last year when I ended up in the hospital. Or yes, no, that's when I had surgery. Yeah, that's when I had surgery. Hi, Catrice. Good morning. Good morning. Hi, Evelyn. So no, I am well. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry. I figured out now what you were saying. All right. I am going to get started. I'm going to do my intro. Y'all tell me if y'all hear some music. I've got some trying out StreamYard's new little features, and they've got some music apparently. So, but I don't know if I only hear it or you all hear it. But anyway, just trying out the things. All right, trying to get my money's worth off the platform. Happy Sunday, everybody. As I introduce myself before we get started in this conversation, I am Jewel Pearson. I built a tiny house in 2015 because I want to live in no freedom. And it's fancy because I don't believe you have to give up luxury to go tiny. I am a lifestyle architect and strategist, a longtime advocate for intentional living and representation in the tiny house movement. And after living tiny for a little over a decade, I use my experience and expertise to help others create intentional, self-defined lives. Doing that through home design, downsizing, community, all of those things. And if you'd like to connect with me, you will be able to do so with the video links in the description, with the links in the video description below. So that's who I am. I always say it's not just about the tiny house. It's about clarity. It's about alignment. It's about liberation. And that's also what we're going to talk about today. So thank y'all for being here. Thank you, Bridget. Thank y'all. So it's Labor Day. We are in the Labor Day weekend. Like I mentioned, we're having this conversation in Patreon. Thank y'all for chiming in over in the Patreon conversation. But I wanted to continue the conversation that I started over there. But over here, I want to center Black women's labor. In Patreon, we're just talking about Black labor overall and um, looking at the Labor Day weekend as more than just um, a long weekend away from work, barbecues, those types of things. Um, we're going to talk about Black women and our labor in this country, our labor in the workplace, and the labor. Oh, thank y'all. And the labor that we carry in our bodies. And so, as I was just saying, Labor Day is usually framed around Labor Day sales, barbecues, but the root of Labor Day is really focused on, or the start of Labor Day was based on the labor movement with workers fighting for dignity and fair treatment. And then we know um, how often our contributions are not always mentioned, and especially right now as they're trying to be erased. Our role in that fight was integral, from the establishment of Black unions. There was the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. That was a Black union that was started because they were being excluded from white unions. And then later, we know the labor movement morphed into what was our civil rights movement and advocating for economic justice. Hey, Robert. Alongside labor rights. And so that is the broader um, vision of Labor Day. But if we're really going to talk about labor in this country, we have to acknowledge that it was Black labor that built the country. As we're being erased from the conversations, and as um, the crazy folks want to act like it was all good and fun. We know this country was built by enslaved labor. This country was built by domestic labor. And Black women in particular have been holding it down. We've always been the backbone, working outside the house, working inside the house, holding our families and our communities together. We've always had to do both. We've always labored. And most of the time it has been with very little protection, very little recognition. Again, as we look at the current day erasure of all of our contributions, the DEI initiative, where they want to say that that's the only way that we've achieved anything through DE&I, though those of us who know and who pay attention, who look at statistics, because statistics and math doesn't lie, we know that the main beneficiaries of DE&I are white women. But because the country is so racist, DE&I had to be enacted so that we could be included in the conversations. It wasn't a hand me to allow us in spaces where we weren't qualified. It was required to include us because we were not being included. And so that is what DEI was about. But again, white women have been the main beneficiaries of that. But anyway, as we continue to talk about labor, we know that we're still laboring. and we're laboring under immense stress. We are most likely to be underpaid, undervalued, and overworked. We're still expected to be strong, to keep pushing, to not complain. That strong Black woman narrative that we know is dangerous keeps us in overdrive, keeps our nervous system on go, constant go. And even while our bodies are signaling that we need rest, signaling that we need care, signaling that we're doing way too much. But because we are um, conditioned, because we are the backbones of so much, we keep pushing, and it is to our own detriment. um Stress, and I don't know that this was something that I really understood. I knew it, but hadn't understood it completely. Stress isn't just a feeling. It's not I'm feeling stressed. It's not just a feeling. Stress is something that lives in your body. It raises your blood pressure, it causes inflammation, it exhausts us. Stress is the number one killer, and stress leads to the rest of the killers, the cancers, the high blood pressures, the strokes, the heart attacks. Stress is the number one um, factor in all of that. And it is literally causing us our health and our lives. And we see it happening regularly. It's not just happening to older folks, it is happening to young folks having strokes and heart attacks. And it is stress. And I know this personally, like where I just said I didn't, it's not I didn't know, but wasn't really I don't know if even in tune is the right thing. Um the ways that stress manifests itself in our body. Um but it became more apparent, so very real, as I had a stroke December 23rd, 2023, because my stroke was tied to stress. And I've shared that story before. Stress from a job, stress from um, management, and in the manifestation in our bodies, it was very real for me because I felt something happening in my chest. The something that was happening in my chest only happened during the work week, during the work day. And I'd find myself counting down during the work day to try to calm myself down when that stuff was happening. That stuff was happening. Thank you, Catherine. In my chest. So Catherine wants me to say because the stroke, not my stroke, was tied to stress. Um, the the thing about it was, as I felt it, um, and I shared it with my doctor, I wasn't listened to. And then um, I had the stroke, caused again from having to push through. My plan at the time was to try to get to a year. I hadn't even been at the organization a year. Absolutely. Sending you love. Hadn't been at the organization a year, so I was trying to get to the year mark so that I could take leave. And my body said, nope, we can't do that. I was 4 months short of a year, and that tells you how stressful the job was because it was a new job. But I had been to HR several times within those months from February to December. Um, it was stress. And in addition to the stress from labor, it was stress from the job. It was additional stress because the medical system ignored, dismissed what I was saying, I was experiencing, what I was feeling, and didn't believe me prior to having a stroke. And then even after having a stroke, nobody was believing the words that was coming out of my mouth as far as what was happening to me. And that's a whole other conversation that I constantly have in and around the need to self-advocate. Like you can't rely on these doctors. And my experience sitting with a doctor for a year, and I actually liked said doctor. Um, but then later learning through paperwork as he was sharing about me um, with my insurance company, learning that he didn't believe a word that was coming out of my mouth. So we have to self advocate. We're told we're exaggerating or that it's just stress, and that is kind of what I keep trying to articulate. When folks say it's just stress, it's like this thing that's happening, but it doesn't they don't tie it into it's not just stress because as it's just stress, it's also negatively impacting your body. Something serious is happening when people want to downplay it with um it's just stress. For Black women especially, that dismissal, that downplaying is deadly. Stress is harming our bodies, and then us not being believed or treated with urgency adds to the problem, adds to the danger. And this is a very real conversation. Stress is killing us. And it's not just about our jobs, it's also about the invisible labor that care, we carry. Yvonne, I am sorry to hear that. Um, right now, this whole world and atmosphere is heavy, and Black women have been expected to carry it. This political thing, Black women are being looked to right the wrongs. Um, Absolutely not. The invisible labor that we carry the caregiving, the holding it all together, the pushing through, the keep going. I'm gonna rest soon. All of that stuff. I agree, Evelyn. Um, and as I always say, as I'm talking, I'm sharing in from my own experience, having had a stroke. Right now, I'm caregiving for my 102-year-old aunt. Um, so it's the conversation I also have with myself. But when we don't rest or when we don't set proper boundaries, people, places, and things, when we don't feel safe enough to say no to stuff, we end up paying for it with our health. There's a big price to be paid when we aren't setting boundaries and when we aren't saying no to things or when we aren't um, prioritizing our rest. And we pay for it with our health. We pay for, and ultimately that means you end up paying for it with your life. The thing for me that, as I've shared this journey and where I am right now, the thing for me, the thing that helps me stay grounded is my house. Over 10 years ago, more 13ish, when I started my research for my tiny house, building a tiny house. Um, I chose this life. I chose to live in a tiny house, and it absolutely wasn't about me anticipating. Um, okay, hold on just a minute. Adiba is saying I'm struggling with a bout of vertigo as I watch this morning. Exhaustion and stress. Vertigo was also the first sign of when I had a stroke. So please pay very close attention to that. That is dangerous. So be very cautious. When I decided to build a tiny house, it wasn't me anticipating having a stroke, but it was about me wanting to live in no freedom. That was my why. I established that right out the gate. My why was I want to live in no freedom. It was about me downsizing. It was about me designing a home that fit me. What I couldn't have known at the time is that this house, this space, those decisions um, have ended up saving my life right now. Post having the stroke, having reduced expenses. I'm not completely debt free, so I'm not ever going to perpetrate a fraud. But having a space that brings me joy, um, a home that I know no one can ever take from me, it's mine, um, brings me joy, so much joy, has allowed me to heal and to take the time to heal, because the other thing about experiencing medical conditions, you're given this allotment of time and you're expected to, and it's never the correct allotment of time, and they're going to fight you around that allotment of time for you to come back, because they still need you to labor some more. My house has allowed me the opportunity to take the time that I've needed to heal, and brings more peace in my just day-to-day life. Um, I always share that my tiny house is so much more than a structure. It's part of my liberation. It is less labor to maintain, less financial pressure to carry, and more space for my rest and joy. And so that choice I made over a decade is still serving me, and serving me so well today. And so as I think about that, and I always talk to this group about, it doesn't have to be that you live in a tiny house. I know that's not everybody's desire, but less is liberation, and less can be in so many forms. Um, People, places, and things. That's my answer to it. Less is less people, less places, less things. People, places, and things. There is a lot of liberation in freeing ourselves in that manner. Um, Liberation for us means more than, being on the road and or the pathway advocating for fair wages, labor as most people refer to labor. I'm not saying we shouldn't be advocating for ourselves and our jobs and being paid fairly. We know we're not. But liberation for us also means protecting our bodies. It means protecting our joy. It means protecting our health. It means us letting go of that um, strong Black woman badge of strength that was never ever meant to serve us. It means letting go of the expectation that we should save all the things. It means letting go of not prioritizing um, your wellness and prioritizing your rest and prioritizing your self care. And self care doesn't necessarily mean going to get a massage. Self care can mean I'm not doing these 10 things on this to do list because today I'm having a seat. Self care is prioritizing our mental, physical, spiritual, all of those things, wellness. And as we are in this Labor Day weekend, we have to recognize that we've labored enough. We've labored way too much. We've over labored. We are the most educated in this country, and we're still always in the mode to continue proving ourselves because that's what the lie of white supremacy leads us to. I was talking yesterday with my dear friend in a consult, and she was talking about imposter syndrome. It's not really imposter syndrome. It's the lie of white supremacy that tells us that we aren't enough. And it is something that we have um, taken into our spirit and taken into our psyche. So that's where the imposter syndrome comes from. It's thank you. It is the lie of white supremacy that tells us we have to keep pushing and we're not enough and we got to get some more degrees and we have to keep climbing that corporate ladder. Again, I'm not saying don't, but if it's costing you something that is your health that you can't get back, then that's too much. And we've done enough. Our rest is resistance. Our Black joy is resistance. And we deserve all of that. Absolutely. Evelyn is saying good health is sitting in my outdoor meditation room. Listen, when I tell y'all, so y'all know I will stay on with y'all in the afternoons and just chat, just chat, just chat. Lately, I have been trying to make sure my conversations are succinct and we have our time, but I want to go sit outside. And that is my peace. Part of and back to Evelyn's point, part of the healing for me post the stroke is healing my brain, and meditation is part of that. And there's a big piece that happens with me as I'm trying to heal my brain because you all know I've shared I got a new brain. I got a different brain post having a stroke that operates differently and it needs different care, and meditation and quiet and is so much of that care. So I'm really focused on healing. And as Adiba is saying, expectation and achieving are fuel for exhaustion and depletion. I've been there already. I don't want to do that ever again. It didn't serve me well at all. And so the thing that I have learned and grateful. I'm always referring to my book that um, life is in the transitions. Something terrible, having a stroke, turned into something so positive for me, and how I have to had to reevaluate how I move, how I show up, what I allow, what I don't allow, and fine tuning it um, to prioritize myself, to prioritize my health. Um, and it's been a beautiful, as much as you can say, having had a stroke, it's been a beautiful journey to this point. It's been a scary journey. It's been a sad journey. It's been frustrating as I deal with the medical professionals, as I deal with folks who want to downplay what happened, as I deal with disability, having to fight for my benefits because my disability isn't as visible. And so people want to downplay your needs, and you should be able to go back to work. Absolutely not. I can't. I got a new brain, and my brain doesn't operate in those ways, in those old ways that weren't serving me. It can't. And I don't, and to be honest, I don't want it to. Rest is resistance. We've labored enough. And on this Labor Day weekend, I would ask you to ask yourself, where is labor? In a job or otherwise, where is your labor that you currently have going on in your life costing you your health, your peace, or your joy? You got a long weekend to think about that. And then, as the second part of that is, what shift can you make this long weekend to reverse that, to protect yourself, to prioritize your health, your peace, and your joy? You got a whole extra day. Well, most of us do. Where is your labor, job or otherwise, costing you your peace, your health, your joy? We've labored enough. And what is one shift that you can make today, tomorrow, this week? A shift that you can put into practice to protect yourself. It is Rosalind. Rosalind says, my new brain is mercy from God and it's my protection. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know how bad this could have been. I know who and where I am now and how different I am, but it is grace and mercy. Absolutely. So as you're thinking about ways you can, I love that. Eartha Kitt, I do not dream of labor. As you're thinking about where you're over laboring, there's some resources out there that if you aren't familiar with, you should be familiar with. And if somebody's in the chat that works in this line, feel free to drop your information. Marissa Price, she helps Black women heal from workplace trauma, and it is trauma. And she is doing that work to help you build a life rooted in freedom and ease. So Marissa Price, if you don't already know her, I love that. My friend Stephanie and Rashida, Exodus Summit, the Exodus Summit. They always helping Black women get the hell out of Dodge. Um, they have Exodus, their event, Exodus Summit, always happens in October, um, around Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm not exactly sure the date right now, but I do know their website is up and tickets are on sale. I think there's an early bird ticket right now. Um, it's exodussummit.com, I'm pretty sure. So Marissa Price, Stephanie and Rashida. There's Trisha Hersey, the NAP ministry. Rest is resistance. Octavia Rahim, the rest coach. She's spoken at um, the Exodus Summit. Pretty sure that was last year. Thank you, Evelyn. My friend Tracy Collins, if you are trying to grow your own business and leave those other corporate spaces, Tracy is a business strategist, and she helps women with that. So there are resources out there for us to help us navigate that shift. Me, I didn't even put myself in there. If downsizing, a tiny house, um, intentional living, if any of those things are on your list, I'm here for that. Rosalind is saying, tiny living affords me the luxury to not have to deal with stressful, unfulfilling work environments. Amen. Part of my desire in building my tiny house was to live in no freedom. And I've often spoken about how when my daughter was young and I had to work in some of those corporate spaces that I absolutely hated, but I knew I needed to stay in those spaces to pay the mortgage, to feed a child, to make sure she could enjoy the things that I wanted her to enjoy. And sometimes I literally wanted to get up on my desk and quit, cuss everybody out and quit. And maybe sometimes I'd even stand up and then I'd go ahead and sit on back down because I got to pay the mortgage and I got to feed a kid and I got to do all those things. And as I dreamed about building my tiny house and this life focused on living and knowing freedom and a life focused on less, my main thing was being able to choose jobs um, based on I want to work there. I like the company's mission. The job sounds interesting and something I'd want to do versus I have to make X amount of dollars and these are the jobs that are paying that amount. And so I need to pick from these jobs. And that's a big thing to hey there. That's a big change that where you can make decisions based on your wants and desires versus requirements. And that is so much of what I've said. Um, mhm. That is so much of what I've said has been my tiny house journey. Um, hey there. My past career. So I have been early on started out as a receptionist, um, segued into administrative assistance, administrative assistant. Um, I have, and then segued that into corporate event planning, meeting planning, corporate event planning. Segued that into project management, and then segued into product management. So my last job was My last um, years in corporate America, I've been doing product management, and it is the segues have been so that I could climb into different pay scales. So much of what I've done was self-taught, but I was good at it. Um, that's the way my other brain used to work. And but it was again, I gotta feed a kid, and so I need to make X amount of dollars. Um, and the ability to make decisions based on desires versus requirements is big. One of the challenges I had with the job where it led to the stroke I had was I knew I had stepped back in time, but it wasn't exactly all of my fault because the job is I always the interviewing process and the job was like the bait and switch. It was absolutely not what it was sold to be. Otherwise, I would have run like hell. But it soon became apparent that I had been sold a bag of goods, and I was working feverishly to get up out of there. And but I didn't end up working fast enough. And as I think about that, it was my constant prayer then to for God to show me how I got out of that situation. I always say you got to be specific in your prayers. Um and he showed me because he did show me. I experienced a stroke. I experienced that stroke and it got me out of that job and I haven't been back since. I'm grateful that I don't look like or feel like what I've been through. But he gave me what I asked for. Just be careful how you word what you're asking for is the point there. Um, did I like the companies, the culture of working with people and having a consistent salary? Out of that, the consistent salary was the probably the main point. Some of the companies, I worked for a company in structure for a while, and the prior to them changing leadership, it was this bubble of the perfect job. I liked everybody I worked with. I liked what I was doing. I liked my team. I liked everything. And then they had to go screw that up and change management. Um, but most of my jobs have been a means to an end, um, especially working in the financial industry. Most of the financial companies have caused harm to Black and brown folks. Their monies have been made from Black labor, Black exploitation. And so it's really hard to like a financial institution other than for the consistent paycheck. Have I worked with some good people? Absolutely. Um, some folks I still keep in touch with today, but for the most part, it is working to pay some bills. Um, yes, the environments may change, but it remains familiar. The players still carry the same character traits. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I agree, Geraldine. But we have over labored, is the point. We can't keep over laboring and expect our bodies to keep up. We shouldn't. That absolutely will. White men will always be paid more than anyone. Absolutely will. and that's statistics. Um, yeah, we've over-labored. We've over-labored. I don't know why I'm struggling with saying that. Um, and so now we have to focus on us, our care, our peace, our liberation. So I gave you some resources. Um, I'm always here as a resource. Let me throw my banner in there. I got some courses, consultations, and coaching that I offer. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat. Let me get the link over here. I'm always available. Yes. Evelyn says, God had Jewel suffer a stroke to start a reset. God also had me crash my bike and go through surgery to get my full attention. She is correct. Be specific in our prayers. I agree with that. And I agree with the full attention. I'm focused, man. I am um prioritizing myself, my health, even as being a caregiver. Geraldine with the facts. I am still prioritizing myself because if I don't, who will? If I don't, who will? All right. Where is your labor in the job or otherwise costing you your health, your peace, or your joy? And what will you be doing? What will you be shifting? What will you be changing? What will you be eliminating? People, places, and things to protect yourself. And you got to start now. Thank you, Geraldine. Rest is resistance. We deserve rest. We deserve self-care. We deserve all of those things. We've over-labored. We've labored enough. And we deserve peace and ease and we deserve liberation. And that's what I want for all of us, myself included. Thank y'all for being with me today. Y'all know I'm going to sit outside. I got some work over here to do. I will be doing that as well. We'll continue this conversation about Labor Day and Black labor over in Patreon. I might even throw in a little get together for us, perhaps. I'm not trying to labor too much, but I just might do that. All right, good people. Thank y'all for being with me today. As always, I so appreciate you. Do I feel like I could have worked for myself years ago? Absolutely. If I could figure out the income, the consistent income, absolutely. I do not have to work for the man. I am smarter than the man. It's just that consistent income. And insurance, as Rosalind mentioned. That's how they keep you in the chokehold. Because they in the United States, which is why we have other resources to leave this place. In the United States, they keep you in the chokehold because they don't offer us the basic care that so many other countries offer so that you can focus on something outside of labor and focus on something outside of their corporate America. They want us to be caught up in this rat race and on the hamster wheel where um, Panama, um, what other country have I been in? Somewhere else I know. Panama for sure, somewhere else, and I can't think of where it is right now. On Sundays, just to show you how other countries are focused on other things. Sundays in Panama, they shut down some of the main roads so that people can be out enjoying walking and bike riding and whatever else, scooters, focus on care and family. They shut down the roads. I always talk about when I'm traveling and you go past a park on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock and you see the families out there, and it's multi-generational families. Um, absolutely. Multi-generational families who are out on a random Tuesday at 6 o'clock, enjoying a meal and enjoying each other, and the grandchildren are in conversation with the abuela. I think that's right. Yeah. The US has us in the chokehold because it's the labor that they focus on because it makes other folks rich. And that's why we have to and that's why we say rest is resistance. When we choose to not line other people's pockets, but to prioritize ourselves, that's resistance. When we choose to um, focus on our health and wellness, that's resistance because that's not what this US society wants for us. All right, good people. Again, thank y'all for being with me here today. As always, I'll see y'all next Sunday. As my grandfather used to say, God willing, and the creek don't rise. Um, I'll see y'all next Sunday. I hope everybody has a great day, a great no labor weekend, great rest of the week, all of those things. Y'all take care. Thank y'all for being here.